Hello, everybody. Welcome to module 4. Do you love I just switched then into proper like presenting mode? I'm like chit chat. Hey, everyone. If you're on the replay, welcome. Today, I touched on this a little bit at the start of the session with Isla, but today is such an important topic. And when I first had this concept come through, it was so clear. It was one of the first things I wanted to do. And actually, after the first module, I told you all we were going to do this in January. And I actually pushed it back because I decided that the order needs to go in this way. Like, firstly, like we needed to feel worthy. Then we needed to build our confidence to go for stuff. And then we need to be open to receive. If we just did this bit first without the other bits, I don't think it works. So that's why I've done it in this order. But this is something that I've really had to work on. So in 2019, 2020, I was working with a male coach. And at the time I was like, wanted to launch a business, and I was like, all these different fears were coming up. And he pretty much made me work on my relationship with my husband. I probably talked about this before. He made me work on my relationship with my husband and my ability to receive before doing anything. Like, wouldn't even speak to me about like me showing up on a camera on Instagram and watching me Instagram and stuff like that. He was just like, Lynda, how you do one thing is how you do everything. We need to sort out your ability to like receive. We need to sort out your ability to hold boundaries. We need to sort. So we were started in this sort of space, but so much of it was on this receiving. And at the time, and Chelsea may resonate with this, but I know you've done loads of work yourself, so you've like probably moved through it all. But at the time, I was a new mum. I was breastfeeding through the night and trying to launch a business as a full-time mum. And I just had this like block from asking for help. It's like my mum lives like 10, 15 minutes away from me, but like never asked my mum to come around and help me out. And like with Chris, I think I mentioned this on the weekend, like I would like send him to the back bed, like at 10 weeks, I sent him into the spare room, and I was like, there's no point you having disrupted sleep at night. Like, you've not got the boobs, like you can't do anything. Like, I'll just do this on my own. And I very much really identify as like being, I don't know if you guys will resonate with this, but like growing up, I always felt like independent, like the one that like do it all myself and like didn't ask for help. And it became obviously then like a bit of a badge of honor that people are always like, oh, she's really independent. And I think probably if you look at the holistic psychologist stuff, like little kids being independent isn't a good thing. Yeah. It's more like a coping mechanism, because we're not getting what we want from our parents, really what we need from our parents, I should say, not what we want, because I don't even think I wanted it. It was just like I didn't realize I needed it. But anyway, that's aside. So yeah, like I've always like done everything myself. I am really strong. Obviously, I had an eating disorder, and I never got support for that. I just went on to go and study nutrition and eating disorder, did a diploma in eating disorders, and like understood psychologically why I had done what I'd done, and it all made sense. And so I'd always had this thing about helping myself, and yeah, being this block to receiving was a big thing. So anyway, I worked with Blake for absolutely ages on it. And I wouldn't say I'm anywhere, like I would say I improved. It's one of those things like you need to practice it every day. And it's like, I probably got really good at it, and then I like ebb and flow, but now I never ask my mum for anything, like still, which tells you a lot about the relationship with my mum. It's amazing. She's so lovely. She's so nice. But yeah, I definitely feel like asking her to come and look after the child. So she's coming today to look after it when I've got a client. And I'm just like, I had to work myself up so much to be like, oh, ask mum if she'll come and help. So yeah, asking for support. So this is why I'm so passionate about it. And the reason, and then just to finish the actual sentence, which has been a really long one, is like what Blake was like saying, if you're unable to receive, being able to receive support, you're not going to be able to receive money into your business. So you need to become comfortable with receiving to allow this money to start to come in. So yeah, so that's why I'm super passionate about it. So I have got a few notes to make sure I talk about stuff, but I'll probably go on tangents. So the first thing I want to say, and we talked about this in the very first module, is as women, we are, from a money perspective, we have so much ancestral blockage around us being like able to receive. So if you remember me talking about this, I think it was about it was roughly, these aren't the right dates, roughly 1965 in the US and roughly 1975 in the UK, when women were actually allowed to have their own bank account, which I think is insane. Like when I think like my mum was like, grew up in a time when women didn't have bank accounts, I just think it's crazy. I don't know what it is in Australia. But yeah, so like we didn't have like our own way to put our own money. And when we married a husband, like anything that we had, anything that was like through the family that we had went to the husband, became it. So if we owned property, it became his property. And like, so us having and receiving these things was like, we just didn't have them. And then, I mean, I'm really not his historian in any way. So, I mean, I'm not that familiar with it. But if you think about how we actually then got the right to earn money, obviously to start with, it was like a war thing. It's like we went out to work because like people needed us. So we were doing stuff for people. But then we like really had to fight for our rights. So it's almost like, this is what I was reflecting on the weekend, is like, it's almost like we've always been in this place of proving ourselves. It's like proving ourselves as women to go out to work and earn this money, and that we're as deserving as men. And then if we look at like hierarchy in businesses and stuff, like, or like leadership, you know, governments, predominantly male. And like in the UK, we had Margaret Thatcher back in the 80s, like before Charlotte will know, because she was probably not alive in those days. But like, and she was the Iron, they called her the Iron Lady. And it was like, she wasn't like this sort of feminine being. And obviously we had that disaster. They had that disaster with that woman recently, but we won't even talk about her. We've had a couple of female disasters actually, but yeah, so we don't really have these prominent figures in, like, as you grow up in terms of like what you're seeing on the media. And then when you get into the workplace, and this obviously getting so much better now, certainly the businesses that I worked in, I mean, one business that I was in, there were a lot of females, but that was a really horrible environment to be in. It was really bitchy and cliquey and stuff. So it wasn't a great example. But the most recent place I was in, you know, total white, middle class men, like just running the show. And I think I probably talked about before, you know, 22 people on the leadership team, which was kind of classed as head of departments and directors. And there were only 3 of us were women. It was like mad. So you weren't seeing many, female PMs and GMs. We don't see that many examples of like women like in these significant positions of power where they're receiving, you know, these bigger things of money. So that was just one thing to say. So yeah, ancestrally, like we're carrying stuff that we don't know about. And then we've got media conditioning us, TV shows conditioning us. It's absolutely fascinating right now. Sorry, side note, it's absolutely fascinating right now. So in the UK, there is certain soaps. One of them is called Coronation Street. That's the one that's based up near Manchester, where I am. So I grew up watching Coronation Street, right? And they started playing replays. And when I was pregnant, or maybe just after my other one was born recently, I started watching it when I had a bit of free time, this classic Coronation Street, they call it. And I started watching, it used to be on like 2 times a week, and then it increased. So like you get through like a year in about 2 months, because like the replays are going so fast because they're every day, is 2 episodes a day. I'm like obsessed with it. But it's so interesting because I started watching it when it was like 98, 99, I think. I think they're about 2002 now because it's going so fast. But seeing the way they treated women then, and like me thinking like, oh my God, this is what I was exposed to growing up. There's so many horrifying things in those. You need to watch them like just to see it. But yeah, they're very like, there's a guy that runs a factory, and all the girls like work for this guy, and this guy's like this businessman, and all the people in it, they're all businessmen. So there's like a butcher. Yes, Mike Baldwin, exactly. He's amazing. I love him. There's a butcher, he's like a businessman. Then there's this other person that's a corner shop. Then there's Mike Baldwin. There's not a female business owner in it at all. And I think it's really fascinating. And there's like all the girls at the factory like work for Mike Baldwin, because everyone on the street goes and works at the factory, or they work in the cafe, or they're working in the, like, the barmaids. Like I think it's so interesting that we've just like kind of had this upbringing. So I'm just reading these messages quickly. Marry well and rely on a man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that was the first thing I would say. So we've got all these blocks. And then let me just see what I've, so then it's like we almost had to fight for our right. And then it's like this thing of like proving ourselves, like always feeling like we need to prove ourselves for the money that we make. So and I don't know if anyone resonates with this, but like I was reflecting back, like when I had pay rises or promotions, rather than kind of being like, oh, I got a pay rise promotion because I'm really great at my job and I'm deserving of this, it was like, okay, now I've got more money, so I need to work longer hours. I need to like give more. I need to be more available. And I used to like, you know, I even used to say it like my marketing manager used to earn really good money. Yet I used to be like, you know, something would come up and I'd be like, oh, I'll deal with it. You don't get paid for this. You go home. Like I used to use that language, like you don't get paid for this. And she was actually earning really good money. so yeah, it's this thing about like, even when we get this money, and this is why I say I wanted to do the worthiness and the confidence first, because obviously I hadn't done this work when I was in corporate. I would approach it very differently if I went back now. But yeah, like, so we always feel like, oh, if I've got this, I feel like I need to give something. So I'm like, I actually did this. I did this on the weekend. She's going to laugh when she watches it back because she's in here. But I had a new client sign up with me who is doing like my business, my Fierce Feminine Ascension business program. And we're doing health stuff together. We do life stuff. Like, she's doing the whole shebang. And my package is like 3 months, but there's a program in it that you get for free. And she already has this program. And so I was like, so it's like, we're like chatting away. And she's like, yeah, we really want to do it. We really want to do it. Even though I knew she was already going to sign up, I was like, oh, she's already got that program though. So I went, do you know what? That's worth that much. I'll give you 4 months for the price of 3, which is like hilarious. Because I'm like, oh my God, Lynda, like, you didn't need to give anything else. She's like, she already thinks she's getting a great deal. She's like, we've been talking about like 2 years working together. She's like, signing up. And then I'm still like, oh, I need to give you something else because you're not going to like have this program, which is part of like the deal. I'll give you something else instead, which I clocked myself doing that. But anyway, it's come from an expansive place. It's all good. But yeah, as women, we obviously need to give more. And so you may resonate with, if like someone, you know, if you want to ask for help for someone, for example, it'd be like this sort of guilt if there's not this two-way transaction. It's like, well, if they're going to do this for me, I need to do that for them. Or it's like, someone like spent this much on me for a birthday present, so I need to spend like a similar amount on them. I love that Leah's like going, yeah. So it's like this like constant transaction of like, we give and we receive, we give and we receive, we give and we receive. And it's just like, we can't just be in receivership. We can't just like appreciate it. And I've probably talked to you guys before, sorry, I knew there'd be tangents, but I've probably spoken to you before. If you haven't read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, I really recommend it. It's one of those books that was life-changing for me. So I read it when me and my husband were going through this tricky time. Oh my God, I need to talk about my husband. Okay, remind me to do this. We were going through this tricky time and I decided to read it, even though I'd had it on bookshelf about 8 years before. I never read it. And what I found really interesting was in it, they talk about how we give points for things. So it's almost like, so if we do something like massive for our partner or what they deem to be massive. So I always use the example of like, if I bought my husband Formula One tickets for his 40th birthday, which by the way didn't happen, but if I had done, I probably would have got like 2 years worth of points and never had to do anything ever again for like 2 years. But like, so we score things differently. So like a cup of tea, we might get a point for, but like something big, we might get like 20 points for, blah, blah, blah. And we get these points. And with women, sorry, we give them the same points for everything. So it's like, they take the bins out for us, they'll get a point. If they make us a cup of tea, they'll get us a point. If they renovate the whole kitchen for us, they'll get a point. Like if they do, so it's just like everything's even. So it's like they're constantly having to do stuff for these points. And that really made me laugh. It's just this concept of giving and receiving as a complete side note. But yeah, anyway, don't know where I was going with that. So giving and receiving. So one of the things that we need to do is start to get comfortable with receiving without having to do more. Without, oh, if I need to do this, I need to do more. So that's the first thing. We're going to go on and talk about like pleasure with receiving stuff, but I want to talk about that like up front. I also notice a lot of like blocks to receiving. So this is where I want to talk about husband. So the reason I brought Isla in to the program is because I'm currently working with Isla on a specific block I have. So when I met my husband, he was a breadwinner. He earned way more than me. And then I probably told the story before. And then like my career kind of like skyrocketed and his kind of stayed the same. So I ended up earning a lot more. And obviously I've talked about when we bought this property, I was like, you know, predominantly bought the property. And then I kind of had more cash. And that amongst a lot of other things, it wasn't just that, put a lot of strain on our relationship because my husband very openly was like, I want to be the provider. Like, I want to be the breadwinner. I don't like you earning more than me. And he used to say it. And then there were obviously other things going on, but we ended up getting into a really bad place. And so there was that element of it, of like his ego, let's just be honest, like not wanting me to be the breadwinner. And then the other side of it was when I was the breadwinner, he would spend my money in one of different language. So obviously, you know, we could say we're married, it's our money, but he would like arrange for things to be done on the house, and then without discussing it with me first, and then go, can you pay so and so for this? So I remember like there's one I just never got over. It's like this is such a block. Our conservatory was like rotting and like dissolving around us, and he spoke to this guy and arranged him to do it, and then he went, can you pay Chris $4,000 for the conservatory? And I was just like, what? Where's this come from? And like it wasn't like we agreed together to get the conservatory done and that I was going to then invest this money in this conservatory. Like from my perspective, the conservatory was fine. So anyway, that's one that I've never got over, but there are different examples of that, right? So ever since I've launched my business, I've had this block around, okay, I can have a certain level of success, but I can't go beyond that, because if I start then earning more than Chris, his ego is going to be knocked again. Our relationship's going to go under pressure and we'll end up getting a divorce. And that's literally my story. It's like when I'm earning more than Chris, we get a divorce, and I don't want to get a divorce. So that's kind of where I am. And then I've got this other side of me who's like, but also when I have more money, like he's spending it. So what I found I started doing in my first 2 years of business was getting like dangerously, excessively spending my money as I was earning it, so that there wasn't money to put in the joint account. So I was like talking to Isla about the amount of money. I mean, it's horrifying. I don't know if I can say it here, but the amount of money I've invested in one-to-one coaching, masterminds. I was talking to Leah about this actually the other day. Like courses, course after course after course after course, when I've already done that same stuff in another course. And like, it's like way beyond a house deposit kind of levels. Do you know what I mean? It's like I could have put some money down to buy 3 different properties probably. It's disgusting. So this year I put a block on my spending because I'm like, actually that money we could have had on multiple holidays. We could have done this, we could have done that. There's loads of different things. So yeah. So anyway, I've been working with Isla so she's doing some hypnotherapy stuff with me to try and work through this block to get to a place of, okay, that was then, this is now me and Chris will become very aligned with what we want to spend our money on. And when I am earning more than him and have this like massive overflow, it just means that as a family, we can start to go on more holidays together. We can pay to get the kitchen installed, which I've got in the spare room currently. Charlotte might even tell you the story of the day. It's in my spare room. We just need to get it bloody installed. I can have my spare room back, which is where I work out, which is one of the reasons I haven't worked out for 5 years. And there's all these different things. It's like actually starting to look at the benefit of like when I just open up to receive more, rather than thinking this is going to lead into a divorce and lead into him spending my money. It's like together we're going to invest this money in really great ways that are going to be really great for the family. And so this other pattern I've recognized in myself is I've had these like highs and lows in my business, and there is seasonality for sure. We're going to see ups and downs, but they're like literally like if I have this really big month and I'm like celebrating my massive month, then it will like have like, say it was like, 3 times my normal income. I then have 2 low months where I'm basically making next to nothing. So it evens out. So it's like, it's getting to this. So I think I might have talked about energetic minimums and energetic maximums in the first one. If I didn't, I'll just explain the concept now. But this is something that Amanda Francis teaches, who I got onto via Leah, who I absolutely like love now. Get her book. It's only like 10 quid or whatever. Listen to the audio. It's really great. But she talks about these energetic minimums. It's like, what are we available for? And it's like, the minimums, like this is like to cover all my bills. And then this would be me in overflow. And you kind of probably somewhere between it all the time. And I think it really resonates because it's like, yeah, my maximums are my maximums. I'm hitting my maximums, which are brilliant, but then I might drop down to my minimum again. And it's all averaging out over time where it's like, shit, actually, this is like this, not having this like consistent thing, but this is all tied up with this thing of like, well, if that money comes in, then he's going to spend it. So I just wanted to talk about that. So I want to talk about blocks to receiving in that way, right? So we can be blocked to receiving just because we haven't built the receiving muscle in ourselves, which I'm going to come on to talk about in a minute. But we can also be blocked from receiving because of what may come with that receiving. So I had one client who basically her mum and dad weren't working and she had lots of brothers and sisters. And when she had money, her mum started to spend her money. So it's like similar sort of my thing, but in a different way, because the mum was like almost stealing money for it and like spending on things that she didn't agree with. So it's like when I have money, I need to get rid of it. So same as me, it's like, oh, like if I have this money, Chris will go spend it on the house, so I'm going to spend it on myself. I'm really selfish and spend it on myself, and like he can't get near the money. So yeah, it was like she had that. There's another person in the program told me the other day that she had a light bulb moment when she went through module 1, because she realized that she manifests loads of money in, but she can't make it herself. It always comes in via a partner. So there's this block. So she's like, can receive via a partner. And she feels like she receives from a partner. Now I might remember this wrong, so apologies if you're watching back and I get this wrong. Sorry. But I think what she was saying is she never received from a parent. So she's like receiving from a partner and doing it that way instead. But she's struggling with this, like to receive directly from clients. So she's kind of got this block coming in here that she's obviously now working through. So we may have like certain blocks in terms of where we get it from. So it's like, oh, I can receive money through my business, but I can't receive it through you know, stocks and shares, for example, or like I can receive it through a corporate job when I've got someone like watching me and ticking boxes and stuff, but like, why can't I make my business work? Nothing's coming through a business. So maybe different things through that. There may be blocks of what comes with, if you, so for example, if we're in a corporate job, this is coming through. So if you're in a corporate job and like to get the next level to receive more money, that when you're at that level, you know that you need to present to, go back to my old job, like 2,000 people at the Christmas conference, the store staff, 2,000, you'd present the marketing campaign to these 2,000 people. Like if I wasn't comfortable going on stage, I would be blocking myself from getting to that next level, because I've had that story in my head of when I'm at that level, I'm going to have to do that presentation as 2,000 people. I'm the opposite. I love standing on stages. I'm like, give me the stages, give me all the opportunities. But yeah, it's like that could be a block for some people if they're really scared about public speaking, for example, or if like the promotion comes with like needing to manage bigger teams and having that like block around like conflict and confrontation, like managing team members out of the business if they're underperforming, this kind of like all of these kind of blocks of like what comes through with receiving that more money, what block's going to come up. So with a business, sorry, let me really quick sip of my drink. With a business, it may be like, this is another thing I've said to Isla, I really want to work on. I'm convinced I'm blocked at a certain level of like receiving Instagram followers, because like consciously I'm like, I want to grow my audience, I want to reach more people, I want to change more lives, but I'm like, it's just not really happening. It's kind of staying around the same level, like it's growing really steadily, but I'll come in and then it'll drop off, and it'll come in and drop off, and so it always stays around the same sort of level. And I'm like, what is this bloody block to having these people? And one of these blocks is like more people becoming wider known, becoming more like famous within like the industry of like what I do, brings the risk of like bringing in other like experts who may have a different point of view and disagree with what I'm saying, and then be those like keyboard warriors in the story, in the comments. Do you know what I mean? Like I had that right at the start. I mean, I just deleted them and blocked them straight away, but it was like, I can't remember what to do with. But yeah, like that is like, because that's something that can come up for people. It's like, oh shit, like I'm exposed to more people, maybe this like conflict, because you know, the reality is 100 different people have a different 100 different point of views about, you know, you've got your carnivores, you've got your plant-based, you've got, you know, there are going to be people who've all got evidence to back up what they believe. And it's like, yeah. So yeah. Persecution wound, Chelsea just said. So yeah, that sort of thing might come up. What else have I said here? Or like needing to work longer hours, or if I do this, I might need to work longer hours, and I really love my family time and I don't want to give that away, so I want to stay at this level. This was actually one of my friends actually said that she actually took a step down in her career when she went back after maternity leave and went down to a lower job, because she just had it in her head, well, if I go back at that level, I'll need to work longer hours, but if I go on this level, I don't need to work as long hours, which doesn't need to be true, right? It's like, it's another story we've created. It's like a reality we've created for ourselves. Like we all have the same hours contract, whatever level we're at, but we create these stories and like, oh, well, I'll receive less money because I don't want to work as long hours. I've got absolutely loads of these, by the way. I'll keep going just in case anything resonates. Welcoming more people into programs. So I want to have a program launch that has X amount of money. Okay, well, if I do that, I need X amount of people. And so it's like on paper, I want to earn this amount of money, but can I hold space for this amount of people? Like that might feel too overwhelming. It may feel like someone may be really comfortable with one-to-one and not really as comfortable in groups. So there may be like, oh, maybe like 5 or 6, like the subconscious go, maybe 5 or 6 might be safe, but like 20 people, you sure you can handle that? So all these things like happen in the subconscious level, blocking us. So it's like more money, more responsibility, longer hours I've talked about IG, more open to criticism as well. So that could be another thing. It's like, you know, if you've got a really tight-knit community with and the people come into your program, like you guys who come every single time and like love and adore you, like you guys are always going to be really nice to me, even if you don't agree with what I say. But, you know, if you know, a load of people come in who barely know me, and then they, you know, they may come in with criticism, it might be something to like, I'm not saying I'm moving through these things by now, but I'm giving you guys examples, by the way. I also want to talk about receiving feedback, right? Because often we can really struggle to hear, like, to receive positive feedback. It's like, Isla touched on a little bit, like, how do you take a compliment? Like, do you just sort of defer that compliment? But sometimes it'd be like, you know, if you're in your job or whatever, it's like, get this positive feedback, and it's a bit like, I'm just sort of doing my job. You know, it's like, I can't really receive that. But then we receive negative criticism like tenfold. So like, if I was doing my end of year review when I was in corporate, I actually remember this. Like, I remember having this like corporate, this review, my boss was like, you know, outstanding, exceeding, whatever it is, the highest thing you could possibly get. And it was all this really great thing. But then he like picked up one thing. That was just like all I could think about. And he was like, Lynda, can you stop focusing? He's like, I can see your brain turning over and you're thinking about that thing I've just said. And he's like, I need to give you some feedback. And I'm like, don't think I'm open to receiving this. Like, it's like, yeah, it's like body going to fight or flight. So I'm just double checking, because I think, yes, sorry, I was just catching up, missed a few things. But yeah, sorry, Ilhan. Just open chat instead. So yeah, so when we're being open to receive, we also need to receive like positive feedback and constructive criticism as well. It's like part of receiving. We need to get comfortable with receiving in that way as well. I hope that made sense, because I kind of waffled that. Yeah, so if we like, the other thing I would say is, because I know everyone here is like business owners, so, you know, for example, what people can do is thinking about launching a program and receiving people into the containers. What a lot of people will do is, and we're going to do a whole module on like launching, selling, we're going to do lots more of that stuff as we go along further into the program, but people can like self-sabotage and close containers because they don't, it's not selling, it's not working, or the body can get sick. I think it's quite interesting that I'm literally about to come up to a launch and I've got sick. I know my child's sick and I've got it off him, but this happens to people a lot. It's like, I was about to launch, and then it's like, and I have to push it back a month. One of my clients has literally just done this. She was supposed to be launching with the upcoming Aries new moon, and she's like, last week, she's like, I'm going to push it back until April. And she's like, Lynda, I'm not doing it from self-sabotage way. It's like, okay. But like, you know, we just, sometimes we do self-sabotage, but it's out of fear of so just see the message. Several circles, some kind of, yeah. But it can be fear of our greatness, our fear of like, this could actually explode and it could be absolutely huge. And like, I don't know if I'm ready to hold this. So I'm just going to self-sabotage. Because like, what's that saying? Somebody tell me what that saying is, but it's not fear of thingy, but it's fear of how great we can be or something, isn't it? It's like fear of our own greatness. I feel like Chelsea's typing it. Self-handicapping, fear of success. Yeah. I have to remember what that quote is. And the other thing I would say, sorry, and the other thing is like this whole like fear of criticism, like receiving this criticism, this can then show up as like really like, so another thing, one of the modules is going to be wealth through the chakras, and we're going to talk about how the different chakras tie into us making money, but are really obvious, and like blocks that can happen in the area, and then what we can do to relieve them. I don't know how long that masterclass is going to be. Might be a long one. But obviously one of them is our throat chakra, actually speaking our truth and calling in aligned clients and aligned like souls that are like are perfect for us. And so often if we have this, like, for example, on Instagram, it's like, well, I don't really want to say what I want to say because I don't want to rock the boat and I don't want to alienate people. I want everybody to like me. So it's like, it's this watered down version of myself that we're putting out there. And then because we're like fear of this criticism, fear of this rejection, and then we don't actually speak our truth, and then we're not calling in the aligned people either. So that was sort of another little thing tied into that. So blocks to receiving, I want to touch on that. How are we doing for time? Am I flying through this? I also want you to reflect. So there's going to be a workbook as always, by the way. So there's going to be absolutely loads more to go deep into, but there we go. Yeah. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is we are powerful beyond measure. Yeah. Marianne Williamson. I love her. Yeah. So stories about receiving. So I sort of touched on this. So a little bit when I was talking about the girl in this program who realized that she can receive through a partner, but she can't receive through herself, for example. So we may have stories around where we can receive from. So for example, you know, I'll happily like receive money from my dad if he wants to help us out with the house, for example, but I don't really want to receive money through, I say I don't really like receiving money through my husband. I don't know if that's true, but it sort of is. It sort of is. Like, I want to like be independent and I'll have my own money, like we're equal in this relationship kind of thing. But yeah, you may find that you like, there's certain places you're happy to receive through, and then there's other places that you're blocked from receiving. So I talked about like, I can receive through our corporate, but I can't receive through my business. And that can come down to like the self-worth and all that kind of stuff, obviously, it's coming up there. Or, you know, I can receive through winning the lottery, but I can't receive through whatever. Don't want to keep coming back to job. So that's another thing I'm going to get you to reflect on. So let's talk about pleasure and receiving. Let me have another sip. Am I going too fast? Is everyone following? Is it all making sense? You know me, I like to get to the point and just say things. So pleasure and receiving. Sorry, I had Chelsea, I think you missed this, but I had a client at 7:30 a.m. this morning. It was like 7:30 till 9:30. I just haven't stopped, and now my throat's just like, I need like coffee and water. So as women, we touched on this a little bit on the weekend. As women, there's a lot of shame around receiving pleasure, because when we think about pleasure, we often think about sex. And there's this like the whole like whore thing, like, you know, women having a one night stand, then she's a slut, versus a man having a one night stand, it's all cool. Like there's all this kind of stuff going on in society. And yeah, inequality basically. So there's this, the kind of like the word of the pleasure can be really associated with like sex. But let me just see which direction I want to go with this first, because there's multiple things I want to say in it. So this is sort of this is tied in. So one of the things I want to talk about is like just receiving, full stop. And then there's receiving with pleasure, ease, and joy. So many of us are blocked off from receiving, full stop. And then when it comes to receiving through this like pleasurable way, like it's totally foreign, because we've been conditioned to think that like to receive money, it needs to come from a place of like hustle, force, like doing, giving, all those different things. I don't know if Leah's not nodding at me or she's nodding to someone else in the room, but yeah, I was like, she's head to the side. And we're all projectors. Oh my God, every single person on this call right now is a projector, by the way. So, I mean, clearly, if you're not a projector, just omit this bit. But yeah, we're not here to like hustle, force, and do, are we? We're here to like guide energy. So, so these two elements to it. So I'm working out what direction to go with it. So yeah, let's talk about the pleasure thing first. So we're so blocked off from like receiving pleasure, and it's kind of seen as a bad thing. And on Sunday, I said about like how we do one thing is how we do everything. So often you'll notice now when you start to reflect, that if you are someone who rushes with like wolfing down your food, for example, then you probably find that you're rushing through sex to try and get to like that climax, that kind of like end result. And maybe like rushing through your days, like going out on a walk and like just like podcast on, head down, just doing it to tick the box that I went out for a walk today, I got my steps in or whatever it is, rather than like really slowing down and really enjoying everything. And so when we are thinking about receiving, one of the first things that we need to start to do is to recognize that we're receiving all the time. So every time, we're going out in nature, we are receiving the sun's rays, we are receiving, the wind through our hair, we're receiving the noise of birds in the trees, we are receiving, the sound of the river, like whatever it is, like we're always receiving, and we're receiving through our 5 senses. And it's like tapping back into these 5 senses and really acknowledging. So sorry, I've got something there I'm going to knock off if I don't move it. Tapping back into our 5 senses. And so they're like, when we're having a meal, like really receiving that food. So it's really funny because, and by the way, I don't do this, but something that the book Pussy, yes. Do you know what? I've got all of these books. Is Pussy the one that talks about cunter? Like that the word C-U-N-T came from that. Yeah, because I've got it up there somewhere. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so something I tell my clients is that, like, to help with optimal stomach acid, we need to chew each mouthful 20 times. Like, how laborious does that sound when you got to think I've got to chew 20 times? Because we're so used to like doing 2 or 3 chews and we're just like wolfing it down. It's kind of getting through it all. And it's like, you can enjoy your food. It's like, yeah, that was great. But we're kind of getting to the end result of like, oh, I've eaten my dinner, it's amazing. I'm going to sit on the sofa and have my dopamine hit now. Like that kind of thing, instead of like savoring everything as it goes down. So one of the things I'm going to get you to do, if you don't already do this, which Chelsea probably does, is start to like literally slow down time, and spend, because time's made up, right? Isn't it? Anyway, so it doesn't exist. So slow down time and start to savor through the senses more. So you may want to do this like once a day, where it's very conscious, where it's like you have a pleasure morning, for example, and it's like, if you've got the luxury of working yourself and working from home and kicking off your day when you want, but you might want to be like, well, my pleasure morning is after I have my shower, I put on my body oil. Might want to like dance to some music naked. That's totally up to you. That's something I always recommend to my fertility clients when they're like falling back in love with their bodies. And I have my breakfast and I enjoy it really slowly. And I have my morning drink and I like really hug my mug and like really like, put on some like really relaxing, beautiful music. And it's like being really present in that moment and just starting to like get in touch with all 5 senses. So it's like, it's the touch on your body as you put on the oil. It's the smell of it, the taste of your food and drink, the sound of the music, what you've got on, like whatever it is, like trying to get in touch with those senses and like actually starting to tap into your pleasure a bit more and starting to create safety in the body when we're in pleasure. Because this is the main thing. It's this, and this is why pretty much every single module you end up doing breath work with me. It's because so much is happening on the subconscious. It's like releasing these blocks and starting to clear them. So starting to create safety in being in the pleasurable moment. So the same as, I'm sure I probably talked about, I don't know where I did it. I don't know if it's module 1 or when it was, but like when we're having like money dates, for example, making them pleasurable experiences. So if you're really scared to look at bank account, for example, making sure that becomes, it's a glass of wine and it's music and it's like becomes a pleasurable thing. So we start to have pleasure associated with it. But yeah, starting to really tap into pleasure and get the body like feel like it's okay, it's safe. It's safe to be still and just connect with the senses for like 30 minutes or an hour a day or whatever it is. And then you can start to build up from there. And then linked to that, what direction you want to go next, it just feels like I need to say this now, so I'm going to say it. So then as you then start to go through your days, it's then trying to start to bring more pleasure and ease to your days as well. So it doesn't feel like head down, bum up, like working all day. So specifically you're thinking about launching, because it's very relevant right now because I'm about to go into one. And we'll talk about this more. But for example, like when we're launching, what a lot of people do when they're launching something is like being in that like mask energy all the way along and like trying to get people in. So constantly going. But really what we want to be doing is like doing all that work in the lead up, really getting known for what you do. So then when you do actually launch, it's like an easy sell. You put it out to the world and then you go off and receive. So you go off and have a massage, you go off and go for a walk, go and have a bath, go and do some self-pleasure, whatever it is. It's like, go and do something or in a state of receivership, to get in that receivership energy. Because really, when we want people to come into our world, it's like, I need to go and receive. Amy Lee is hilarious. Me and Leah were talking about this. Amy Lee's hilarious because she's like, I mean, she's got over 100,000 followers, I think now. And when she taught us how to do Instagram, she says she's always done this through the start. This doesn't quite work for me, but she puts a post out. She never hangs around to interact with the comments. She says she mostly ignores people's comments. So she does everything against the algorithm, what it tells you. But she posts and she goes and lies on the grass and receives. And like, she doesn't even look at it. And she's like, I'm just in a state of receivership. She's like, I've always done this. I can't bring myself to do that, but like, I love the thing behind it. Like, I love that whole thing of like not being attached to what comes in. It's just like, I'm in a state of receivership now. I'm going to let people come to me. Everyone's just living on me. It's amazing. And she is, you know, very, very relaxed in her sales process as well. And this is more for the projectors, guys. This isn't for your generator manager. This isn't for you, but like she'll like you know, just share things a couple of times, be like, you know, you've got a month, come in if you want, don't worry if you don't, it's fine. It's just like so chillaxed. It's just like, it's a lovely like experience to be in her energy. But yeah, going on tangent, what's we got here? So talking about this, sorry, so Chelsea's just saying, for anyone watching the replay, that she'll literally just get bookings while she naps. And this is so true. So this is why I do breath work so much, because, and sometimes I'll have like the busiest day and I've got a million things on my to-do list and I've literally got back-to-back clients and I've got an hour in between clients. And I'm like, I really need to write an Instagram post in that time. And I'll go off and do breath work for an hour, because I'll be like, I need to be in receive. I need to just like, for me, breath work's all about receiving oxygen. So obviously I'm clearing blocks, but I'm receiving oxygen. I'm really consciously receiving that oxygen and receiving that breath. And it's very like purposeful process. And the amount of times I will come back from breath work and there'll be DMs of people saying that they want to book in a call to chat about one-to-one, or I'll literally have Stripe notifications coming through on my email of people booking. And like, I'll never forget, I did this really powerful one, like I remember it was like last January, and I came off and two random people I'd never met in my life, didn't know anything about them, hadn't had compatibility calls, both had booked in during this breathwork practice for like one-to-one stuff with me. And I'm just like, who are these people? How have they found me? But it was just like, and I literally looked at the time and I was like, oh my God, I was doing breathwork when it happened. It was like, yeah. So like getting ourselves out in a state of receivership. So I'm going on a tangent. Right. So shame around pleasure, shame around receiving, feeling like we need to be doing stuff to receive anything back. So we need to work through these blocks. So in the workbook, what you're going to find is like, what are your current blocks to like, what is your current relationship with receiving? How would you want it to look? And then lots of other prompts along that line. Because I'm just thinking like how much I go on right now versus let you go. We can do some breath if you want, by the way. So yeah, getting the nervous system relaxed and started experiencing being in pleasure and joy more, and start to give those disconfirming experiences to prove like the part of you that believes you need to be in hustle and force and grind to receive money, like start to prove other ways. And so other ways you can practice it is as you receive in your day-to-day life, saying thank you without having to give something back. So start to acknowledge where you receive all the time. So like a compliment, someone opening the door for you, it might be like a free coffee someone gives you, you know, someone might pay for your lunch, like whatever it is, be like, thank you. And sitting in the discomfort of thank you. I'm not, thank you, I'll get it next time. Or like, even though you can do that, but like, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You may then want to say, I'll get the next one, but you know what I mean? Like just make it, having that bit of a gap, just having that gap from straight away, like trying to like defer it, like having that gap. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, I really want to quickly touch on this as well, because this is something that Leah asked me to talk about. So also, as we receive, we're kind of taught that from a manifestation perspective, like to kind of manifest more of that, we need to like have this massive party and like be really grateful to the universe. It's like receiving, and then like almost like Leah's word, it's like a put on a performance. Whereas like when she was like, as she receives a Stripe notification, it's more like a little giggle, and it's like, oh, little sale coming. And then like feeling that that's not enough, because we need to put on this like big act of like, thank you, universe, more please, more please. So all I wanted to say on that is, yeah, do what feels good to you. Like, don't be fake. Don't be fake, because the energy of that fakeness isn't going to translate through anyway. Let me just see what these comments are. Yeah, I'll get it next time. Yeah. Yeah. The Dutch people. Yeah. That comment. Yeah. My brother's over this weekend. I need to talk to him about what it's like in Holland when it comes to like money. Cool. And did I want to say anything else to that? Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to find out where I am on this thing. Another reframe I just want to talk about. This isn't going to be relevant to everyone, but this, like, I've got one particular client that this really comes up for with. So, and so I thought if it's coming up for one person, it's worth saying that recognizing that as we invest, recognizing as we spend, whatever language that you want to use, we're receiving. So it's not like, oh, I'm buying this thing, or I'm paying this person for this thing. It's like, as I spend, I receive. As I spend, I receive, because you are like kind of getting this transaction, whether it's a physical thing, you know, like a beautiful crystal, or, you know, it's somebody's like time and knowledge and experience, or whatever it is, like, but we are receiving. So as you spend, instead of like, oh, I'm going to pay for this, it's like, I'm going to receive this. I'm going to receive this. I'm going to receive this. And like start to like program the mind is like always we're always receiving. We're always receiving. That was something I always say as well. And I feel like there was another point, but yeah. So this is going to be in your journaling workbook. But I can't believe how fast these sessions go, and I feel like I barely said anything. Part of your journaling book is going to be a prompt around what are you required to do every day to get into the energy of pleasure, play, joy, and receiving, so that it can be like getting more in this, getting yourself into this energy of, and we're going to do a whole module on masculine and feminine, by the way, but like this is specifically thinking about receiving, but thinking about like, we don't need to be in this hustle, force, and doing all the time. I can be in this like other energy of receiving. So I can be in this pleasure, ease, flow kind of energy. I wanted to quickly say, sorry, because I wanted to say this on Sunday. Gemma noted about her thing about work and how much she enjoys work, and then feeling like, oh, I don't want to just sit back and like do nothing because I actually enjoy work. Gemma's a generator. I want to say that actually. So Gemma's a generator. So that's completely right for her, because she's when she's following her joy, that's giving her a life force energy. And then that's going to energize all of us as well. So it's really great for Gemma in that example to be in that energy. So as always, guys, take what resonates and leave what doesn't for you guys. So if you're like, well, when I'm working, it doesn't feel like hustle and force, it just feels like joy and ease. Well, that's great, because that's when you're in alignment, and that's when everything's going to flow to you. It's more if it's like this, like, I have to write an Instagram post today because, by the way, Charlotte isn't just like a man eater. She's like, she's a matchmaker. So she was a matchmaker, and she like matches men and women. So the comment just said, I'm struggling to find men right now. Could have sounded like she was just like a man eater. Yeah, you need to start receiving more men into your world. God, what was I saying then? Honestly, my mind's all over the place. Yes. So being in our joy, being in alignment, Yeah, so it's not like, oh, I need to do this, like I must like write this Instagram post because if I do this then I might receive a client. It's like, do what feels good to you in that moment, or I need to do this and then I might receive, or for example, or that person did that for me so I better go and do that for them now. It's like getting ourselves of that energy and getting more into like flow and then opening ourselves up to receive. That's the point I'm trying to make. Not very well. When see fem flow tends to be more go structure flow last year and craving more structure, doing productivity. Yes. I am hyper masculine naturally. So I don't struggle to get into the mask. I definitely have to work more on being in fem flow. Let me read your comment again. I feel like when we are burnt out, that is definitely a sign that we are too much in the mask, because that's a sign that we're in the doing all the time. But like we can't be in that like kind of fem flow all the time because nothing gets done. So it is that thing about like having that thing. I mean, obviously when you're holding space, you're in your masculine then. So like when I'm in these containers, like I'm holding space for people, I'm like showing them in masculine, but then I'll go from this and I'll either go and do a massive breath work, which I can't do today because I've got my little boy, but I would sometimes just come off these calls and just go and do like a breath work for an hour, or go for a walk out in nature, or just go and be in receivership some kind of way. But I think definitely making sure that it's like, I'm definitely a fan of having the mix. I think a whole year in fem flow. I can see why you're craving more mask, like put it that way. Although you got loads done last year, to be fair, and you were moving through so much. So I don't want to share what Chelsea was going through, but yeah, she was moving through so much. It's like you obviously needed to do a lot of healing and stuff like that as well. Yeah, I'm earth and air. Yeah, Chelsea just said lots of hair in natal chart. The more stressed I feel, the higher the block feels. Yeah. So write a bit more on that, Charlotte, because I don't really know what you're saying. I'm just thinking, is there anything else I wanted to say to Chelsea just then? I feel like you've got this. Yeah, life. Yeah, exactly. So you're like, you maybe felt like you were more in like fem flow from a business perspective, but you're probably like hyper in your masculine in your real life, and trying to sort stuff out. So you're probably spending more time in masculine than you realized. Maybe just in other areas of your life rather than business, if that makes sense. Yeah. As an example, the more I find a man and see I can't use him for whatever reason, I feel more pressure. Then see on the same thing. So I think I just add the build. Yeah, okay. It's such a funny one because it's like, I'm open to receive more men. Maybe you need to look at like the blocks within the actual business as well, because it's not all you, is it? So it's like, what are the blocks within the actual business, the way it's set up, the structure, the channels. I know I voicemailed you about different channels that you could use to get people in, but like, what are the actual blocks from that level for you guys to, as a total, not as just you, but like as a business, to receive men in? And just like I said, like get a brainstorm in with like the rest of the team and actually come up with like a load of different ideas, because it doesn't all sit on you. That's the other thing. It's like not just you, it's like everyone. Yeah. So Yeah, and mum life also doesn't get a validation or cash quite often either. Like if mum life was something you got paid for, like we'd be millionaires, wouldn't we? Okay, I feel like I rushed through it even though it was nearly an hour, and I'm not sure if any of it made sense. So please tell me if you've got questions, or is there anything you want me to speak more into? Did it actually connect the dots from what I was trying to say in terms of like receiving, blocks to receiving, how we can receive more? Like I say, it'll make more sense when we've got the workbook as well, because I've got you journaling on more stuff. But there's basically these two elements of our actual blocked receiving full stop, working out what's blocking us from receiving, if there's certain channels, get into the root of those things that, like, you know, if it's like I need to be at a certain level to receive more money, or I need to like have certain Instagram following, or I need to have like this many people in my program, or whatever the like root stories are around receiving more, or if it's like receiving more money for your work. It's like these blocks, you know, coming back to the self-worth and the confidence modules on like, oh, I can't increase my prices because of XYZ. Or so there's that element, this like that feeling like I need to like give to receive. So like not feeling like we always need to be in this give receive energy, more like I can just receive, particularly if you've been in like a big hustle period. So, and I think I might have spoken about this here, didn't I? But like when I was like proper hustling last year and then completely burnt myself out, and then Amy was like, I want you to take a month, I shouldn't give a specific time, she was like, I want you to make a good amount of time away from your business. I want to like totally go. I don't want you to think about it. Obviously, if you have an idea, amazing, jot it down. But I want you to like completely take yourself out of the business, take yourself off Instagram and have a rest. And I did that. And I chose 4 weeks. After 2 weeks, I was desperate to get back. And I made myself put sail for the 4 weeks. And then I did like 4 weeks or so of posting every single day, really consistently, before I then announced my books were reopening. And then I signed like 4 new one-to-one clients in 10 days. So it's like, it does show, it's like, okay, I was in that go, burnt myself out. I really took myself out. I rested. Then I went a bit more back into masculine, because I was like posting every day, improving, you know, like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I can support you, like get that credentials back up. Okay. Like she knows what she's talking about. Guys, my doors are open. I'm ready to receive. But I tell you what I did do that I don't recommend is because I knew I had this program launch coming up, I was like, right, I'm going to open my books from April. And that gets me through my program launch. I can get like my workshop ready. I can get everything done, my branding, all that stuff. And then I'll launch the program and see my one-to-ones at the same time, because the actual program isn't that hard to like, the content isn't that hard. It's more the getting stuff ready up front. And I said yes to every single one of those people to start with me immediately. And I'm an idiot, because now I'm like having to push my program launch back, because the process of like doing a 2-hour kickoff and then people's initial plan is like one of the biggest parts of working with them. Charlotte knows because she's done that with me. And so it's like, that is like a few days work, just like trying to get that initial stuff together. And it's like, and I've got 4 of those going on, and I've just, yeah. So that, yeah. So like, that's another block. Like me, it's like, oh, I'm receiving people, but I'm so scared if I don't receive them right now that they won't stay, they'll go somewhere else. So I better like, you know, support them here and now. Like back into that like fear of like, oh, if I don't receive them now, I might never receive. So, you know, like I say, I'm working through this stuff all the time. I am far from perfect. Overgiving stories, energy receiving. You can speak about pricing even in the future sesh. I've slipped into comparison. Yeah. Yeah, so I am going to do a whole module on, well, I'm going to do one called selling with soul. And I don't know if the money will like the pricing one will tie in with that one, or whether it'll be separate, but it probably will tie in with that one. But it was going to be a little while. So let's talk about that now. So let's talk about it. So this needs water. So for anyone watching the replay, the question was, can we talk about pricing? Because I'm getting into comparisonitis. I'm comparing the price of my circles to others because I'm more expensive, but then my one-to-one coaching is cheaper, and it's like the cheaper putting people off, blah, blah, blah. So there are coaches at every level. There are people running circles at every level, and people put different values on different things. And this example actually someone said to me really recently, so it's like top of mind, but they were saying like, if Beyonce was hiring they said business coach, but say she was choosing someone to, you know, take her through a cacao ceremony, let's just say that. Would she choose someone who was charging £100 an hour? No, she'd probably want the person that's going to charge her $5,000 for that like cacao ceremony, because it's kind of like that level. So it's like, we're like, you know, there's different people that want to pay different things. And I'm very much like, you know, the amount of money I've spent on one-to-one is kind of ridiculous. But so I don't like the toxic narrative, right? I don't like the toxic narrative that you need to spend X amount to, and I did a post on this on my new business account actually a couple of weeks ago before I like disengaged from my business account. I hate that narrative, like you need to spend a certain amount to activate yourself into the next level. Like, I don't think it's true. I think you can activate yourself into the next level. But there was definitely something about investing in a place that felt a little bit scary and felt like, shit, how am I going to find the money for this? Well, I was about to say that was good, but then actually it probably did put me into that masculine hustle force, because I was like, shit, I need to make the money to pay for this thing, because I want to pay it off in advance as well, because I don't really like monthly payments. I like to know I've like dealt with it and like just done it. But anyway, yeah. So what's my point? I'm trying to come back to, yeah. So, but there are people at every level, there are coaches at every level. And really, when it comes to the number, it comes down to what you can get behind and then what feels a little bit stretchy. I have had, and it also comes down to like the container you want to run. So I launched with a 3-month thing, and that worked for a really long time. But then I was like, I don't have like a one-off, like I don't have a one-off thing that I do for people. If they don't really want to pay for 3 months with me, they can like get into my world and taste it. And so I created a one-off offer and I set it at a price, and I was resenting the people coming in at that price, because I was like, it's just so much work for me. Because it's like, you're not just paying for those 2 hours with me. Like I said before, it's like you're paying for that and then this massive plan I'm doing. And what I was doing with those was I was charging for, I was doing them like, I was doing 2-hour kickoff, and then I was basically doing them a 3-month plan. But rather than like seeing them each week and like building on it, I was trying to do it all at once. It was like, okay, my projector eyes are on you. This is what you need to do over the next 3 months. So then it became this massive thing. So all I kept doing was putting the price up and up and up and up and up. And it got to this stage, I can't remember if it was 888 or 1,000 for those, but it got to the stage of like, I still didn't feel successful as a projector doing those, even though I was getting a ton of money, you could argue. And the reason why they didn't feel good to me, sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent. The reason it didn't feel good to me, I realized, was because I love to see people through. And I wasn't getting any feedback. I didn't know how they were getting on. I didn't know like what transformation they were having. So for me, it was like, okay, that just feels icky. So like whatever. So the fact that people had to pay like $1,000 for like a one-off session with me, and people were paying it, like on paper, like who would pay £1,000 to have a 2-hour session and get a plan? But people were paying it, but I didn't feel successful. So I felt out of alignment with them. So that was one thing. It's like the pricing needs to feel good for you and the container needs to feel good for you. So whatever that one-to-one container is. So then going back to it. So then the one-to-one container needs to feel like you're getting fairly compensated for your time and energy that you're putting in, as well as the transformation that you're giving, without you feeling resentful. Because I feel like and so it may be that you're like, oh, I feel cheaper, but I feel really good about the price. And so that's cool, because then your energy is going to like call those people in. I feel when you've got that resentful energy of like, oh, they should be paying so much more than this, like we're going to repel people out anyway. So it's about finding the price that feels good for you, the container, the setup. So it's like some people, you know, Amy was like, said to me, like, Voxer, would you think about doing Voxer only? I was like, no, I would not think of doing Voxer only, because it doesn't feel good to me. I love being in Voxer, as Charlotte knows. Like I do a lot of messages in there when I do have one-to-one clients in there, but I really love the face-to-face contact of catching up every 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever container people are paying for. Like, I really love that, like getting to know people that face-to-face, and that idea of like never getting to see them face-to-face and just talking in Voxer, like really repels me. So I'd never do like a Voxer only container. I would never do something shorter than 3 months now. I'm even starting to think about changing to 4, because I kind of feel like you're only just getting started at 3 months. Like, you like 4's like better, like 4 to 6. So that's that bit. So just on its own, it's like pricing that feels good to you. Sorry, you typing, and I keep thinking you're typing. Not comparing yourself. There are clients at every level. There are coaches at every level. People want to pay different things. That's my point, wasn't it? It was, yeah. So it's like some people do feel like they need to pay a certain amount. So I feel like, you know, if there was a business coach that costs $2,000 for 3 months, I'd be a bit like, that was my point. It's like, well, that's not really where I am. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to pay more. I want to pay more. Because it is an activation for me. So whilst I say, like, I don't believe like you need to be like, oh, if you're not willing to pay, you know, 10 grand for 3 months coaching, then like you'll never get to that level. Like, do you know what I mean? There's sort of this truth and lies to it. Yeah, so when I was working with Aisha on this, so sorry, just again, anyone on the replay, it's like feeling good about the price, but might make the session longer and a higher price because I tend to run over. Anyway, so what Aisha said to me when she started off doing she does her soul, whatever she calls them, I don't know if she does them anymore, but like one-off readings, and she started them as like, you could choose the 60 minute or the 90 minute. And they were different prices, but they always ended up being 90 minute anyway. So she just changed them to 90 minutes. Because it's like I couldn't get it all in 60 minutes. So I just did the 90 minutes, did the higher price. But yeah, I mean, Aisha's pricing was insane. A one-off session with her, and like bearing in mind, because she always says to me, like, Lynda, you give yourself homework. I don't have homework. Like, I was like, well, I kind of have to have homework because I need to write people's plans for them. And she was like, can you not just tell them? I'm like, no. Other people could, but I like to give people detail. So I give myself homework. So it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think when I booked her one off, it was like 700 and something for the 90-minute session. And I think she's at something crazy, like, I don't know what she is now, maybe a couple of grand now. But like what she's saying is, you know, in those sessions, I change people's lives. Like I redirect them, I get them in alignment with their like astrology. So if anyone doesn't know, I work with Oracle. On Instagram she's known as, but she's called Aisha, which is what I'm calling her Aisha. So yeah, she helps people like align their astrology with their unique gifts and like blah blah blah. And yeah, so she's like, I'm transforming people's lives. And the other thing to take into note when you're doing one-off sessions is, if you're running a master, this is where like the hourly rate becomes confusing, because like this is another example Aisha gave me. She's like, if I can run a masterclass, $100 masterclass, and I can make 10 grand off of one masterclass, what is my hourly rate? Because if I'm seeing someone one-to-one and they're paying me X amount, but I could be running a masterclass in that time, making 10 grand, is my hourly rate 10 grand an hour? So that's a really nice way to look at it as well. It's like, you know, it's all having these mixtures. So that was that. Yeah. If you feel like you're overgiving and you feel like it should be longer and a higher price, then I definitely do that. I would definitely look at, I don't know if you do like a 3-month package or a 2-month or something. I would definitely be looking at like a package models where people can journey with you for longer, rather than one-off sessions. And then in terms of the circles, it's just got to be what feels good for you. So if people are buying your circles at the current price it doesn't really matter what anyone else charges. If that feels like the right energetic exchange for you, if you drop the price just to match somebody else, you're going to be blocked and you're going to start repelling people, because it'd be like, I don't think this is worth the compensation for what I'm giving. Yeah. So yeah, and working deeply with people one-to-one, so projector, right? So I would definitely work out some kind of 3-month, 2-month, whatever feels good to you container. What that looks like in between then is like totally up to you, whether it has Voxer access, whether it has weekly calls, it has fortnightly, it has monthly calls, like the different things. But having that thing where people can be with you for the journey and transform, like what I was saying to you when I was doing the one-offs, I didn't see the transformation, I wasn't getting the feedback, it was just really frustrating for me. I didn't feel successful as a projector. It's like I've given people all of this, and sometimes I wouldn't even get a thank you for the email. Wouldn't you be like, thanks so much? I wouldn't even get that. It's like, let alone know how they've got on. And I'd be like, ugh, this is rubbish. Like, I just don't enjoy this. Yeah, stay your lane, apples and pears. Yeah, because there's going to be people who like it's like a luxury treat for them to go to one of your circles, and it's like they want to invest a bit in themselves because it's their monthly treat. Whereas if it was like, I mean, I don't know what you charge, but if it's like $10, like it doesn't really feel like, and it might be like, oh, I don't feel like going today and it was only this much, so I'm not going to bother. Versus like, I paid and I'm definitely going to go because I've like spent this much on myself. Do you know what I mean? There's like that element of it as well. Any other questions? No, I'm going to have to go, not do breath now, just because my husband needs to leave at 11 o'clock and it's 12 minutes to 11 because I need to take over childcare. In the portal, though, I'm going to drop you a couple of different things. There's going to be just a receiving meditation that you can use on a daily basis. And then there's going to be, I will record, because I was thinking of doing one today, I'll record a deeper breathwork thing. You'll have your workbook with all the prompts, and there's obviously the replay from the weekend as well, which I know Chelsea fell asleep in, so she's going to redo and breathe. So the breathwork that Isla does is sort of different. So the ones that we're doing are generally with me, although because I use like 11 different techniques, but the last couple I've focused more on that mask. So we've been hyping you up and building your confidence. So more like the energizing ones. I have some other ones. But Isla's is basically, just in case it isn't really clear, but I've done a lot of this, it's just it's the continuous breath, conscious connected breathing. You might have heard it referred to in other breathwork things that you've done, or she calls it rebirthing, because it's rebirthing that she's certified in. But yeah, you're basically just breathing and breathing and breathing, and it's just like because we hold our breath so much, so it's actually making the breath feel like it's continuous. And I always picture it like going around the moon. So like seeing this conscious circle of going around the moon, in and out, in and out, in and out, and you never stop. And it's kind of have to go for, because it was quite a long session, but it's because you have to go for like 45 minutes to really get into that kind of, it's for it to work its magic in there. So the Isla one is more like, I'm going to give myself an hour, because I think it's 45 minutes in total. And give them an hour, and I'm just going to lie on the floor and relax and breathe and see what moves through me. And then the one that I put in is more likely to be more like, okay, I need to be more conscious, aware, and be there. Anyway, I'm waffling now. You're all nodding your heads. I hope that was valuable. I hope that I'm honestly just like, I feel sick and my brain's a little bit foggy, but hopefully it's valuable. Charlotte's off. Right. Love you all. And I'll speak to you soon. Oh, our next session is happening really quickly because obviously this one's really late. So our next one's health is wealth. I'm actually making it 8:30 on a Sunday morning, really for Chelsea, because she looks so tired on Sunday night all this time. Our clocks are going to change before like the following one, and it's all going to be much nicer. The time difference is not going to be as bad, and it's going to be better for people across the world. But yeah, so it's going to be a health kind of like how stress is impacting our health in all the different ways, and how we can like nourish our bodies so that we don't burn out. So it's like the idea being is like more this like business without burnout, like how we can support health so we don't burn out and then have to quit and then make no money. So that's going to be our next one. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for coming live. I'll speak to you soon. See you later.